Welcome to the Remarkable Retail Podcast, Episode 9, The Customer is the Channel. I'm Michael LeBlanc.
And I'm Steve Dennis.
In this episode, we're talking about essential number 3, Harmonized, with help from our very special guest, Rob Mills, EVP, Chief Technology Officer, Digital Commerce and Strategy Officer, Tractor Supply Company. It's a great interview, so we'll talk about that a bit later. So this episode really pulls together both, by its title, both one of the chapters where the customer is the channel, but also one of the essentials, number 3, which is harmonized. I think that this is one of the most interesting topics for me. On one hand, execution at retail, and thinking around this connection of online and offline is the most obvious of the essentials in some ways. Yet, for a couple of reasons, you choose both to say, well, it's not exactly omni-channel, and I'm not sure retailers on a day-to-day basis this far into thinking about it really understand it. So how did you start with the simple stuff? How did you come up with the idea of harmonized retail versus, I don't know, like omni-channel? Those are kind of just words, but there's deeper meaning behind it as I read through and as you think about it, yeah?
As I get into in the book a little, and we've touched on in earlier episodes, whether it's true or not, I sometimes call myself the world's first multi-channel or omni-channel executive because I got responsibility for trying to figure that out at Sears in 1999. And early on, it was really more about how to deliver one experience to the customer, recognizing that e-commerce and digital influence was clearly growing really rapidly. So that was kind of the first challenge. And that really got me more into the weeds of kind of the backbone, I guess, of retail, which is we had all these inventory systems and customer data systems and all this other kind of stuff. What I talk about is dealing with all the silos in an organization. So for us, it became really clear that if we were going to bring that vision to life at all, we had to deal with a lot of the silos that we had. And that was just a massive IT project, basically.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my first introduction. When I got down to the Neiman Marcus Group in 2004, one of the things I was responsible for was multi-channel integration. This is right before I think omni-channel became a word. There, we had some of the same siloed issues, but we also at that point had quite a lot of customer data. So when we were really digging into the data, the customer data, we could really see how customer behavior was changing and how the blurring of the lines between physical and digital was starting to emerge. And that seemed to have pretty profound implications for how we should be managing the business. And so just like at Sears, it was clear we needed to deal with some of the backbone or the infrastructure, but we also needed to start thinking differently about how we went to market from our marketing messages and how we measured ROI and all these other kinds of things. So when I went out on my own as a consultant, in some cases with consulting assignments, but in other cases just because through my writing and speaking, I just kept going deeper and deeper into these issues and started to believe that it's really much more helpful to get away from these channel distinctions, that it's really all just commerce. And we are better served by thinking about the customer as the channel. And then it's our job to architect and execute as good an experience as we can. The reason I like harmonized versus seamless or unified or a bunch of other words is really this idea that you want all pieces of the customer experience to sing beautifully together, much like a well-orchestrated piece of music sings together. That, yes, it's important to root out the friction or the discordant notes if you're thinking about composition, but it's also important to create this, to amplify the wow, to create this crescendo of creating something really, really memorable. So harmonized to me is just a more evocative word. Seamless or unified or what have you are just kind of flat. But I generally think the way most of the better companies are applying them, it's really pointing to the same idea.
Yeah. We kidded Lockie Andrews in our last episodes when she likes phygical, and we're like, oh my God, that's the worst word ever. But you still earn your nickel when somebody says it. But we were kind of joking with her about the word. What strikes me as I listen to you, and this isn't, the podcast has never been about a history lesson, but it's an interesting reference because I had similar experiences in the late 90s. I was at Hudson's Bay, and we had a higher mountain to climb because not only were we not thinking about a harmonized from channel perspective, but the banners were discrete and built that way. And the prevailing philosophy at that time, it was Hudson's, it was the Bay, it was Zellers, and then Home Outfitters. They were discrete operating units. I mean, there was a different toy buyer in one business, the mass merch, than there was in the department store, and they didn't even know each other. They had different contracts with the same vendors. Like, it was very much discrete businesses. So I think many businesses had that to get over first, and then had to take on this whole idea. Would you expect retailers to be farther ahead today than they are? And if so, what do you think is holding people back? I think it feels like they're very discreetly good at each, but I thought there'd be more progress 20 years on.
It's hard to say this without sounding like a whiny old man, but I would say on average, retail is 10 years behind where they should be. Like if I go through some of the retailers that are fairly popular and are struggling, some of the things that they needed to fix were absolutely obvious many, many years ago. And I can say this because I can find blog posts that I wrote pointing this out 11 years ago. That doesn't prove it's wrong, but and I was not alone though in some of these things. I think there are lots of reasons why organizations, retail or otherwise, fail to change. In some cases, they're not doing the homework. When I've walked into certain retailers and asked them certain questions about customer behavior, and they haven't even thought to ask the question, that's not because I'm smarter than they are. It's because there's a real problem in their organization. Because if you're paying attention, you would see other retailers that are having success operating in a certain way that's completely different than you are. And you should at least have the curiosity to go figure that out. So in some cases, it's really frankly out of ignorance. They're not doing the work. They're not paying attention. In other cases, they may be doing the work, but they don't, for whatever reason, fully appreciate the meaning of it. You can certainly go back and look at the number of retailers, and Tractor Supply is one, that have been doing order online, pick up in store for years. And having lots of success with it. Mm-hmm. And they could probably show you their studies that showed that customers really like it, and it's great for customer lifetime value. I don't know if they have that particular analysis, but I know several other retailers that do.
And you would imagine they would look at such a thing and that kind of 1 + 1 = 3 math.
There's no shortage of retailers, some of whom I've worked with, and others I've just seen them report this information publicly or share it at conferences, that have had a lot of success with some of these cross-channel harmonized sorts of things. And so if you're a retailer that hasn't seriously considered that, I think there's a problem there. If you have come to the conclusion that that's not for you, maybe that's right. But if the world is moving in one direction, the successful companies are all doing the same thing, I think you're probably more in denial than anything. And then there's always the last thing, which is change. Change is hard. And in many cases, unfortunately, some of what it takes to bring together a really great, omni-channel, multi-channel, harmonized experience is pretty expensive and disruptive. So to sign up, I worked with one retailer where the business case I thought was incredibly compelling as to why they should put their buying organizations together and their inventory and all this kind of stuff that would really allow them to close a pretty significant gap with one of their key competitors. And the price tag and the disruption to the business was the thing that caused the CEO to say no. Now, I guess he's probably looking back on that and realized that cost them an awful lot of money. And they've been playing catch up for many years now because they didn't do it. But it was a scary, it wasn't quite a bet the company sort of thing, but it was a major investment.
Yeah. And that's a theme we've touched on several times in this first season is the resistance to change and the real things that impede those change. I guess we've made progress as an industry. Remember back in the days when the e-commerce group was set up literally to compete with the bricks and mortar. Like you see these press releases, where your job is to take business away from the brick and mortar guys. I think we've made progress that way structurally. But as Jason Goldberg said when we talked to him, he said, listen, if you're worried about what percentage happens here, what percentage happens there, you're kind of missing the point. We understand you need to understand the metrics, but I guess that gets to your point about, listen, percentages matter, but, the strategy matters more about how you execute it and being customer focused. Yeah.
Well, there's plenty of reasons to pay attention. And I think Rob touches on this a little bit. There's plenty of reasons to pay attention to certain discrete metrics or to recognize that, clearly merchandising a website and all the things around that is a different skill set than merchandising an in-store planogram, right?
Yep.
So
there's expertise. There's expertise there that resides in both channels.
Just like the buyer for sporting goods has to have some different skill sets than the buyer of dresses or something, right? There's reasons for expertise and some focus. There aren't any reasons, though, to think about them, to your point, as competing entities or to get very hung up on where the transaction happens to be booked technically.
Right.
The other thing, which we brought up a couple of times, is that the blurring of the lines, I think, has been going on. Well, I know it's been going on for many, many years because I've been talking about it for many, many years. I think what we've seen more recently, particularly by virtue of curbside pickup, it's just even called more attention to how silly some of the measurements are.
Right.
The way retailers, Jason pointed out, the way retailers even account for whether something is e-commerce or not isn't consistent, particularly in the case of this, sort of software eats physical retail argument. You can't, as we, I think, talked about last episode, you can't do ship from store or curbside pickup without physical stores. It is not what we originally talked about when we thought about e-commerce, which was fulfillment from a central distribution hub through parcel, right? So even the way we talk about e-commerce now, again, I think this has been becoming increasingly clear for years, but particularly right now, even what we call e-commerce is vague or sometimes a distinction without a difference.
On that note, let's jump into our interview with Rob. It's a great discussion of all these issues, and then we'll have something. He makes several interesting observations. I want to catch up with you after, but let's give that a listen now.
Well, welcome to the podcast, Rob. You and I have worked together a little bit a couple years back, and knowing your background and your role at Tractor Supply and some of the things that are going on there, we thought you would be a perfect guest for this particular episode where we talk about our third essential, Harmonized. But before we jump into some of our questions, could you just give us a little bit of a sense of your personal and professional background and your role at Tractor Supply?
Sure. And thanks again, Steve, for inviting me on to today's podcast. It's great to be here with you today. I've been in retail as long as I can remember, spending a number of years at Sears, later Ulta Beauty, and now Tractor Supply Company. I've had the opportunity to work across both online and brick and mortar businesses over the years, as well as learn from some of the best in retail. My role here at Tractor is a little unique, holding responsibilities for the digital business, the tech organization, and our corporate strategy function. When you take a close look at what's driving retail today, it makes a lot of sense to us, as technology plays a critical role in driving retail business, both the capabilities to meet the customer needs and the ability to be efficient and cost-effective. On a personal front, I'm all about family. I enjoy spending time with my wife and our 4 children. We spend a lot of time in the outdoors. And most recently, I got a new puppy, which has made really, really interesting times here at the Mills household.
Sounds like you might be a little bit of a glutton for punishment, but that sounds good. So probably right off the bat, I'm sure many of our listeners know about Tractor Supply, but in some respects, I feel like you guys might be the best kept secret in retail in some ways. Could you just give us an overview of Tractor Supply's a little bit of the history and your current business?
Yeah, that's great. And I do think we're the best kept secret out there, but we're definitely having a large impact on retail and our customers. So Tractor Supply is the largest rural lifestyle retailer in the United States. We have over 1,900 stores across the 49 states. We serve as one of what we call the one-stop shop for local farmers, ranchers, and just people who enjoy the lifestyle of living in kind of the rural market. Our products range from anywhere from feed and supplies needed to take care of their animals and pets, so large or small, to the equipment needed to maintain their property. We're viewed as an essential needs-based retailer, very much purpose-driven as a company. We pride ourselves on our team members, the knowledge they provide to our customers, the advice that our customers needs and expect. which ultimately results in that legendary customer service that we're known for.
As you know, the topic for today's podcast is around what I like to call harmonized retail, but it's fundamentally the blurring of the lines between physical and digital channels. And that seems like that's been a big part of Tractor's strategy over the last couple of years. So could you talk a little bit about how you manage the intersection of offline and online?
Yeah, it definitely has been a big part of our strategy over the past couple of years. It takes a shift in thinking, moving from being what's known as a kind of a traditional product-centric retailer, which nothing's wrong with, but, times are changing. And how do you evolve into becoming that extreme customer-centric kind of focused retailer? The customer has to become the center of everything that you do. We spend a significant amount of time understanding of our customers by leveraging the data that they share with us through our Neighbors Club loyalty program that we launched a few years ago. We are able to understand not only the products and services they need and want, but also how do they want to interact with us. That has told us that our customers want the convenience of interacting with us online, researching what product is right for their need, and knowing that we have it available so when they come to our store. They then want the added convenience of either picking up the product in store, or most recently this year, we launched curbside, which has been a huge success, or at the same time, delivering the same day or next day delivery. So the key there is really offering a lot of flexibility on the convenience of how the customer gets the products. Knowing these parameters allows us to build out these capabilities and meet the customer's expectations, which ultimately blurs those lines, but to create that seamless anytime, anywhere, anyway shopping experience that we strive for.
Rob, it's a great background in hearing about the amount of connection and connectivity to the customer. I imagine it creates a lot of data. And when I talk to C-level retailers, one of the things that they struggle with sometimes is actually harnessing and using that data and actually drawing from it insights. How do you manage that at Tractor Supply?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It does take a lot of data, and it's something that you have to mature into as an organization. So first, I definitely agree. This isn't an easy thing to accomplish, and it takes an investment both in technology, platforms, and people, skill set. We're here at Tractor, we're really early into this journey, but we've established the foundation platforms to support the analytics required to mine all this customer data. And now we're moving to supply chain and what I would call third-party data. We also leverage the technology to allow us to scale up and down. So it offers flexibility and it makes us more cost efficient. This technology and these platforms lastly enables us to integrate with third-party data, such as weather, which is really critical to our business. On the people side and skill set, in addition to the tech and the platforms, we're investing quite a bit in the skill set to look at this data, analyze it, such as data scientists, both in IT and the business, as well as from developers and engineers to take this data and turn it into artificial intelligence or machine learning capabilities. This is all critical. It's about people, process, technology coming together to really serve up that ultimately that legendary customer service that we focus on.
So it's clearly not all of this strategy is clearly something that existed in, as I've called it, the before time, pre-COVID. And if you could share how that's been in any ways accelerated. You mentioned doing curbside, and if you've got any metrics around that order of magnitude. We hear a lot about the talk of acceleration. You are already well on your journey into accomplishing this notion of being harmonized. What was your experience with it in the past 8 or 9 months?
Yeah, let me first kind of share a little bit about our journey and then how it's evolved most recently. So in 2017, we began a journey to create what we called the seamless experience across all channels. And it was a strategy that we took to market and as well as internally that we called ONETractor. And it was all about ensuring that we operated in a way that our customers thought about us. They don't see us just as a store or a website or a contact center or calling into a call center. They see us as a total company, as an offering, a knowledge base. And so how do we blur those lines across all those channels? They expect the same service, knowledge, and consistency no matter how they're interacting with us. So when we introduced Buy Online Pickup in Store in 2017, we saw an immediate adoption with over 50% of our customers using this capability. And today, we're nearly 80% of our online business results in a trip to the store, further reinforcing that our customers want the confidence and convenience as a part of that experience with the 1,900 stores and touch points, but also looking at our stores as their distribution center for them. So think about it's a way where they could come into our store and pick up product, but still get that expertise and that knowledge that they desire, and the interaction, because we hire essentially our team members are our customers. And so there's that personal connection, really understanding the community and the products that they need. We've also seen that our customers prefer to shop on a mobile device. 70% of our online traffic is on a phone or tablet, outpacing many of our retail peers. This has driven us to invest in mobile experience, and this year we introduced our first mobile app, and so far the adoption's been great. Now, leveraging the technology and data available to us on the mobile app, we're further able to drive the seamless physical and digital experience that you're hearing quite a bit about in retail. For us, for an example, today we're using our mobile app where we could detect that a customer is arriving for curbside or in-store pickup, alerting a store team member who's wearing a personal assistance device. So think about a wearable device that the customer is ready to pick up their order item. This is all automated. With a simple voice command, the team member can acknowledge the pickup, which in turns then kind of sends the message back to the customer that the team member will be out in moments with their orders. This helps just drives a better customer experience. And think about the productivity on the back end. No paper, it's all voice driven. It's a seamless experience both for the team member as well as the customer. So it's good for productivity, but most importantly, it really drives that amazing customer experience, that legendary customer service that we strive for.
So, Rob, I'm curious, and just maybe delving a little bit more into where Michael was going. One of the things we've talked about on the podcast earlier is that there's this idea that for many retailers it seems to take a crisis for them to innovate. Yet somehow you guys were able to see the blurring of the lines and take action on this several years ago. And I'm curious if you have any general comments as to, or a little bit more specific comments as to how you got there, and maybe some lessons for other retailers that may not be as far along on this the customer's the channel journey.
So let me share a little bit more and kind of go deeper into the strategy, and then I'll talk through some of the lesson learned. So, part of our mission statement is to provide that legendary service to our customers, and we've talked quite a bit about this. And to accomplish this vision and the mission, we know that it means exceeding expectations. Today, customers have more options to obtain products when they need it that they've ever had before. And to be legendary, we have to provide them more than just about the product they need or want, but ensuring that we can help them with the right feed or supplement for their animals, making sure that they have everything they need to complete a project or repair or make a repair on their property, and making it all fast, easy, and convenient so they can make sure they're using the best use of their time. This thinking has driven us to organize around that customer, putting them at the center of everything that we do. So one of the critical lessons that I would continue to stress, it's about organizing your thoughts and your strategy around that customer experience. Our Life Out Here strategy that we introduced a few weeks ago, it's kind of the evolution of ONETractor that I referenced earlier, focuses on that out here lifestyle that I briefly described. It's about understanding that our customers and how they want to shop and making sure that they have the products and the need, and that we have the products and we continuously offer what they need, even down to the local level. So it's really understanding that customer, how they want to shop, and making sure we have the products they need down to even the local level. As we can continue to grow and leverage our store as a touch point and providing them tools and capabilities, making the experience not only convenience, but really personalized. So that's the lesson too that I would really call out is it's, about the customer, making sure you have the data to support the products and understanding what products they're shopping for, but also how they want to shop across all the different channels. But the second piece is about how do you really personalizing it? And this is an area that we're putting extreme focus on going into next year. And this is something we've also been known for in the past. But now how do we leverage our data and the data mining that I referenced earlier to really expand those capabilities? And some of these capabilities that we're looking at is going to be around on-demand expert advice, not only in the store, but wherever the customer is. So taking that mobile app and we're always with them. Imagine that a customer is repairing an item on their property, needing a specific part to complete their repair. Having that ability to consult with one of our team members to identify the right part and then having it delivered to their property within hours from the nearest store, that's a seamless customer experience, and that's just not meeting their needs, but exceeding it. It's also about merging the experiences, providing them the shopping tools that really removes that friction and making it easy for them to shop today. The last component that I would kind of share about, speed and strategy and how we're thinking is, the tools and the processes that we're putting in place. And I talked a little bit earlier in regards to data and just machine learning and artificial intelligence. But now you take order management and something as simple as an order management system, but it's very key to how we optimize and route those orders across the different fulfillment channels, and which ultimately allows us to deliver quickly and much more cost effectively, and ultimately get to a goal where we can deliver same day or within the next day of 99% of our customer base. So think about it once again in the way of having a strategy that's around your customer, leveraging data and insights to offer those capabilities and making sure you have the products when they need. And then also, lastly, having the tools and the platforms and the people in place to deliver it. And that's essentially how we were able to move fast, especially through the recent pandemic time.
I've got two quick follow-ups. At least the questions are quick. I don't know if the answers are, but one is, it seems like a lot of retailers, even if they get this idea that whether you call it omni-channel or harmonized or seamless, even if they think that that's a good idea, many of them have a hard time implementing it, maybe because of the technology investment or cultural pushback. So I'm wondering if you experienced any of that, and if you did, how you got over it. And then a little bit more tactically on that last mile delivery question, that seems to often bring with it a lot of complexity and a lot of cost. And I'm curious how you think about that as you move ahead.
Yeah. So to address your first question, to me, it's all about having clear alignment around that customer across the entire organization. And that's something, I keep on stressing through our conversation about that legendary customer service and having a common strategy and vision and mission across the organization. As an entire organization, doesn't matter what channel you work in, it is about serving that customer and allowing them to have the flexibility to shop however they want, ensuring that we have the best products, the right team member knowledge always available for them, and that we're offering safety and convenience factors for them, such as curbside pickup or buy online pickup in store, or getting it delivered to their property same day. And so to me, it's all about to ensure that you have that seamless experience. You have to have the entire organization on the same page when it comes to the strategy and the priorities, which we have effectively done at Tractor. And it really has enabled us over the past few years, but more specifically, even through the pandemic times, to move quickly. In regards to the last mile, this is clearly a theme in retail, and it's a challenge for all retailers. And it's certainly a challenge for us as well, but we put a lot of focus on it. And our business is further complicated, when you look at our business by the breadth of products we sell. We range anywhere from small parts and tools to bag feed to heavy items such as air compressors and safes. So for us, it's not one size fits all answer. We are working to provide options to meet our customers' expectations. A few examples I referenced earlier, but this year we did roll out same day delivery for smaller items across all of our entire store chain. And we did that very quickly within weeks. This was done through a partnership with a crowdsourcer. In parallel, we also deployed pickup trucks and pickups and trailers to a number of our stores that allowed us to provide delivery of large and bulk items, based upon the market that they're in. But, ultimately our goal is to be able to choose the most effective way to deliver to the customer, taking into account, shipping, how the customer wants to shop, when they want it, what available methods are in place, the distance, et cetera, that meets the customer expectations, but also at the same time to ensure that we're very cost efficient. So blending the two together is what's going to be really critical. And I absolutely feel really great about the platforms and the skills and the capabilities that we've implemented this year that will continue to exceed those customer expectations and also make us more cost efficient.
One last question, and this is probably, frankly, a topic we could do a whole podcast episode on, which is thinking about, or how we should think about, new metrics in this blurred channel world. Historically, we've got sales per square foot and a lot of focus on comp store sales, et cetera. I noticed, as you probably did, a lot of retailers reporting earnings are talking about how much their e-commerce sales have skyrocketed. When you dig below the number, in some cases, like I think in Target's case, the reason why e-commerce is up so dramatically is largely driven by curbside pickup, which sort of begs the question, is curbside pickup, which requires a store, actually e-commerce? But without getting too deep into the muck of that, I guess, did you have any general prescription about how we should start to think about metrics, or how you guys are thinking about metrics perhaps a little bit differently?
So as I've already referenced, our e-commerce business has seen significant growth too. And at the end of the day, it's not about just e-commerce or stores or that contact center, as I referenced before. It is really about, in our opinion, that customer journey and how they shop and allowing them the flexibility. And their journey might start out online or on a mobile device, and then complete a transaction and end with an in-store pickup that might drive additional sales, or even leveraging a team member around product expertise, et cetera. This is one of my favorite topics in the area when you think about the insights that we can gain from our data and just continuously make improvements on the customer experience. First, here at Tractor, we've changed how we measure customer satisfaction and our success as a retailer, measuring across all channels, not just a traditional kind of in-store or online transaction, but really measuring that end-to-end customer experience is becoming the new critical metric, I think, in retail, but it's a critical metric of what we're looking here at Tractor. So really that end-to-end experience from your mobile or online shopping experience all the way through your post-sale experience. Doing this requires that we pull together many of the disparate metrics and data that we have today, tying them all back to that customer journey. Once we begin tying these metrics back to that customer journey, you can identify really quickly opportunities to improve the experience that ultimately, in our case, will drive to that legendary customer experience and mission that we have as a company, as well as just improve, anywhere from in-stock position and product availability to offering more convenience capabilities for the customer. So it's really about using this data to drive a better experience, and ultimately that would have an impact on sales and even cost and productivity. We can also identify, needs at the customers in ways that we're not addressing, which could ultimately turn into additional services or products. Things, for example, through some of our data that we've identified that, our customers looking for bulk product subscriptions. So think about the pallet of feed or wood chips. How do we turn that into a subscription process and ultimately offering a delivery service? So that's just one example, but it could be applied to other services and smaller, large pets and animals as well.
That's super interesting. And really, number one, appreciate you coming on and sharing your perspectives with us. Congratulations on all the success you guys are having, and I'm sure we'll continue to have. And I wanted to thank you for coming on, and I hope you have a great holiday season.
You too, and thanks again for the invite. And don't forget to check out tractorsupply.com and visit our local store.
Hey, Rob, this is great. I mean, listening to the deep intersection between your online business and your store business. Clearly, it's a culture that existed long ago. It's wrapped up even in your role, so it's really impressive. So thanks. I echo Steve's thanks, and really appreciate you joining us for the podcast.
Well, thanks again, guys. I really appreciate it. And thanks for allowing myself to share a little bit about the Tractor story and the great work that our team members do in supporting our customers. So really means a lot to me. And thanks again for taking the time.
Steve, that was a great interview. I there's so much to unpack from what Rob had to say. I mean, I almost want to start at his title alone. It's unique, I think, where you put strategy, you put finance, you put technology all together in one role. I think it points to a culture. And what did he call it? ONETractor, right? Yeah. I think it points to a culture that is well beyond just executing and more, cultural or philosophical, and feels like that's leading to the success that they're describing.
Yeah, I think as I look back at the retailers that quote unquote get it as it relates to the customers, the channel, Harmonized, omni-channel, whatever, is that they just accepted at a certain point that the world was moving in a particular direction and that we were going to need to be, as much as we talk about being customer centric, we really have to put the customer at the center of everything we do and recognize, as he touched on a little bit, that once customers started to do so much shopping or all things shopping related on a smart device, the notions of location really fundamentally changed, right? Because I can be shopping wherever. It also changes the time, right? The second that occurs to me to be shopping or researching or checking prices, whatever it might be, the second I want to do that, I pretty much can. So that was a very big shift. And I think that's part of the reason why I always say the customer is the channel, because they're the ones that the power has shifted to over the past 15 or 20 years. The smart device is really this thing that's kind of the channel buster. And then, the job really is to figure out how you're going to realign your business processes and metrics to serve that customer so that you're acquiring the customers you want and growing the ones you have and retaining the most valuable ones. So there are, a few companies that I think have gotten to this level conceptually, at different stages. But once whether it was the CEO driving it or the management team in total, once they kind of got that religion, then lots of things just seemed obvious to do. The ones that maybe said the right things about omni-channel, but didn't really, they weren't really believers, then they scrutinized all these choices along the way and really pulled their punches. And we're particularly seeing, I think, some of that become more obvious in the COVID world.
Well, what jumps out at me from the conversation we had with him and other conversations we're having with people is this idea, and here's our nickel or dime, whatever we need to pay our friend Carboutet for, is this great acceleration has done a couple of things, one of which that to me seems to be one of those long-lasting both accelerations and changes at the same time, and that's curbside. Like, again, curbside was, as an idea has been around, but it's amplified, and there's nothing more, I feel, to bring it home to the bricks and mortar folks and to the online folks and to everyone that the two channels are harmonized.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. One of the things I wonder about, and I think the companies that are best at this, they're really constantly dissecting the customer journey and looking for opportunities to take friction out of the process or to create delight or wow, whatever you want to call it. My guess is, I know one company in particular that was doing this work and implemented curbside well before the pandemic. They were constantly doing this work. It's a grocery chain, and they identified that busy parents mostly really like the idea of just being able to pull up and have their groceries put in their trunk or back of their minivan or whatever, because they're pressured for time. Maybe they have little kids. They don't want to have to schlep into the store, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So they did it because they thought it was responsive to customer needs and could give them a point of differentiation. It's turned out that they were extremely well positioned for COVID. But I do wonder, because if the lesson that's taken away from COVID is that things are just going to accelerate forever, well, okay. E-commerce was going to grow.
Yeah, probably the wrong lesson. I think, I'm not sure that's the
I think the question is, we talked on earlier about, why does it take a crisis for retailers to innovate? It shouldn't. We always need to be able to react to whatever forces hit us. This just happens to have been really extreme. But I think, is the underlying reason that curbside persists, is it because it really meets a customer need or a delight factor that was already there, independent of COVID? Because clearly some people are doing curbside pickup because they don't want to go into the store because they don't feel safe. Presumably,
but they could have their groceries delivered to their doorstep.
Correct, right.
And sometimes there's a little bit of a fee to that, but regardless, you do have a choice. For many, not all. Yeah. You don't have to go to the store, but you're still going to the store. Yeah. So there's a choice being made there at your end.
But I think the thing that holds back, and I'll just stick with the curbside pickup for a second. I think that a lot, I know from my own experience, that a lot of retailers hesitate to pull the trigger on innovation. Number one, because it's expensive and messy. We'll just wait. We could basically get away with waiting, which unfortunately doesn't always turn out to be true. The second thing is we're solving for a different issue. So on the grocery curbside pickup issue, the pushback, as I talked to another grocer about this, why they didn't do it. And the reason they didn't do it is because they want to get people in the store to sell them more stuff. And so if you are in your car, you've already decided what you're going to buy before you turn up. Yeah. Lots of people, myself included, often buy things on impulse, right? Yeah. And so they just said,
and there's a lot of money at stake. Let's face it. There's a lot of co-op dollars at stake that is being invested by vendors in the store as that last moment of decision that,
so there's this whole system that pushes back against some things that are quote unquote customer centric. I don't think those decisions are easy because you're really having to deal with some fundamental trade-offs. Now, what I'd like to believe, but I don't know if it's true, that in the case of the grocer that implemented curbside pickup, it's a suite of things they do that gives them this incredibly high net promoter score and incredible productivity and profitability. If they're acting on behalf of the customer consistently and they're always innovating, that will accrue to them overall, even if on a certain trip, the customer may not pick up whatever those impulse items might have been. But that's a harder thing to know. You certainly can test your way into it, which is what these guys did. Because when they actually did a few of the original pilot locations, it turns out that shopping overall on the part of the consumers went up. They actually got a trip that they stole from another kind of grocer for more commodity type items. So you don't always know. I don't know that they thought that was the way the business case was going to play out. It just turned out that was kind of a happy finding. But again, that's a reason to test some of these things.
Well, it's an interesting idea because, back to my direct response days and when you'd get folks signing up for a subscription of auto-delivered products, again, nothing new. Every third product, you'd put a surprise and delight gift in with it. And I think that maybe that solves for if I can't get people to try new brands because they're doing curbside, let's just start thinking more like a direct response marketer and just start sampling that way. There's all kinds of interesting ideas I think that are going to come out from this broad industry.
I think the other thing that's really interesting, which I think is benefited greatly by thinking about it all just being commerce and the customer being the channel, and as Rob alluded to, all this data you start to get holistically about the customer, is you can say, okay, well, sure, maybe this transaction or trip isn't as profitable as I could make it. But when I step back and look at all the solutions I can provide for a consumer in the many different ways that I can market to them, fulfill that, partner with other people, I can become more important and valuable in their lives because I have this deeper understanding of what they want and what they desire. And I have all these different ways to deliver it. I think that opens up other possibilities. But when you look at it from a very product-centric or channel-centric view, you don't take all that other stuff into account. I often use this example. I think I've used it on the podcast before, that if you evaluated a grocery store purely on the profitability of the items, on an item by item basis, there's a lot of stuff you would take out because it's not profitable.
Right. A third of the store would suddenly disappear. No more, but no more diapers, no more baby food, no more.
And similarly, the smart people have been doing this long enough that they realize it's crazy to be Home Depot and not have lumber, and it's crazy to have a supermarket without milk and diapers and so forth. But I think it's not a heck of a lot different at Amazon either. A third of the stuff that I buy from Amazon, they lose money on. I think overall they do pretty well, but because I have this deep relationship with them, they get a very high share of wallet. I've got Prime, I've got, the Prime Video, blah, blah, blah. So I think there's an opportunity to look more broadly at the solutions you can provide when you have that data and when you have all these different ways to interact and learn from the customer.
I mean, it all goes back decades, literally, with putting milk at the back of the grocery store, right? So, and the concern that let's make sure that customer doesn't cherry pick the front items that are the traffic drivers and just walk out with those, and all that kind of discussion, right? It's really nested within decades, really, of operations and understanding customers, and now the need to understand a very different approach.
In that regard, I think there will continue to be a need to do what I would call, merchandise your assortment or merchandise your offering. You're not a charity, right? You're in business to make money.
Yep.
And so I don't want to just say, oh, well, do that, even though you lose a lot of money. I mean, you still have to be very mindful. And fortunately, there are many great and improving ways to do customer lifetime value analysis and all this kind of stuff. I think you still have to be thinking about your pricing strategy and your merchandising strategy to try to have your assortment and even your channel mix work to your advantage. I mean, as we touched on, last mile delivery in a lot of cases is not a particularly profitable endeavor. I think the way you make that work for you is hopefully it gets priced appropriately to the consumer, so they're making the trade-offs. But also, you fix it in the mix. You hopefully have a good, profitable mix overall, and maybe it's this amazing delivery service or curbside pickup or some other part of the customer experience that really is the thing that wins that customer over.
Well, listen, let's leave it there. Great discussion about an issue that is, at one hand, very obvious, but on the other hand, pretty gnarly. Like, there's a lot to consider. So it's been a great discussion. And thanks again to our guest, Rob Mills, for joining us. Steve, why don't you read us out?
If you liked what you heard, you can subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. Please rate and review, and be sure and recommend to a friend or colleague in the retail brand or CPG industry. I'm Steve Dennis. You can learn more about me on stephenpdennis.com, and be sure and look for me on LinkedIn and Twitter for my latest insights.
And I'm Michael LeBlanc, producer and host of the Voice of Retail podcast. You can learn more about me on www.meleblanc.co. Steve, have a safe week, and I'll talk to you soon.